Good evening, everybody. I'm going to play Prince Charles, Queen Elizabeth's next in line. I'm going to play him at COP26 in the UN. His speech, radical, crazy, way out there, talks about trillions of dollars. I can show you all the $12 trillion economies of the world forged together. Namely, number 3 on that list, Canada and Canadians. Joe Biden has fallen off all charts, all absolute charts for being re-elected. I mean, way off. That's what you get. That's what you deserve. When you go with narratives outside the Constitution of the United States of America, that's what you get. Midterms, as I called it, you can go on my Facebook, experts around the world, and actual Democrats are just panicking. I'm going to play it for you before I go into all the details. I have another video going tomorrow for Africa, specifically Ethiopia. I'm going to give the 10th smartest man of Africa, of all of Pan-Africa, all 52 nations. I'm going to give a presentation live for all of you, addressed to him. It's going forward. It's going to go to that narrative. He expects it. He's going to get it. I want Canadians, I want Americans to know the truth. I'm going to play this now. If you haven't seen it, listen to it. Then I'm going to break down the details of this narrative that I put in the title, where we're going, where America's going. Americans don't tolerate very much. The Constitution, the institution is strong. Joe Biden's going to get the toss. Right now, if there was an election tomorrow, Donald Trump would win hands down. Midterms, as I called it before, you can go on my Facebook. House is going to flip to Republican. Senate may flip yet to both. Just like what happened to Biden's Democrat predecessor. He lost House and Senate. It happens all the time when presidents are weak, when presidents don't stick to the people. So without further ado, I'm going to play this, and you all have to pay attention to it. 7 minutes of your life. Listen to this crazy man who runs 54 nations of the UN under the Commonwealth Charter 2012. The Utes of North America, which is the United States of America, are the last living part of South America's Aztecs and Incas, who both came up with the 2012 apocalypse of their people through none other than colonialism. Here is the leader of colonialism today, Queen Elizabeth's son Charles. Listen to him on the UN stage. Listen to the radicalism. We're going to go through that. We're going to go through more that not any American or any Canadian has ever heard. Russians haven't heard this either. And there's a reason for that. USA, Russia are a little bit afraid of what the people are going to react to when they hear the truth of this man, his family, their legacy, drugs in the world, UN binding laws against narcotics. But where did narcotics come from? Who is responsible for narcotics in this world? Who is ultimately responsible for the opioid crisis? Going back 200 years, you can look at that man, his entire family, their entire reign. And it doesn't end there. Yes, America's guilty. Yes, Russia's guilty as well too. But they got rid of it. They got rid of it prior to the end of World War II. They made a deal with China. We're going to get into all of that. I've already published lots on Richard Nixon, a resigned president who got Watergate by the Democrats, but he was actually the greatest international legal champion of international binding law. He was also the greatest civil rights champion president America's ever seen. And it's arguable, but people, someone's got to show me something that says that Richard Nixon wasn't all those things, because he was the greatest. without further ado, I'm going to play the video and let you all watch. Stay tuned, it's important.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us just how devastating a global cross-border threat can be. Climate change and biodiversity loss are no different. In fact, they pose an even greater existential threat, to the extent that we have to put ourselves on what might be called a warlike footing. Having myself had the opportunity of consulting many of you over these past 18 months, I know you all carry a heavy burden on your shoulders, and you do not need me to tell you that the eyes and hopes of the world are upon you, to act with all dispatch and decisively, because time has quite literally run out. The recent IPCC report gave us a clear diagnosis of the scale of the problem. We know what we must do. With a growing global population creating ever-increasing demand on the planet's finite resources, we have to reduce emissions urgently and take action to tackle the carbon already in the atmosphere, including from coal-fired power stations. Putting a value on carbon, thus making carbon capture solutions more economical, is therefore absolutely critical. Similarly, after billions of years of evolution, nature is our best teacher. In this regard, restoring natural capital, accelerating nature-based solutions, and leveraging the circular bioeconomy will be vital to our efforts. As we tackle this crisis, our efforts cannot be a series of independent initiatives running in parallel. The scale and scope of the threat we face call for a global systems-level solution based on radically transforming our current fossil fuel-based economy to one that is genuinely renewable and sustainable. So, ladies and gentlemen, my plea today is for countries to come together to create the environment that enables every sector of industry to take the action required. We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector, with trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders. It offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition. So, how do we do it? First, how do we get the private sector all pulling in the same direction? After nearly 2 years now of consultation, CEOs have told me that we need to bring together global industries to map out, in very practical terms, what it will take to make the transition. We know from the pandemic that the private sector can speed up timelines dramatically when everyone agrees on the urgency and the direction. So each sector needs a clear strategy to speed up the process of getting innovations to market. Second, who pays and how? We need to align private investment behind these industry strategies to help finance the transition efforts, which means building the confidence of investors so that the financial risk is reduced. Crucially, investment is needed to help transition from coal to clean energy. If we can develop a pipeline of many more sustainable and bankable projects at a sufficient scale, it will attract greater investment. Third, which switches do we flick to enable these objectives? More than 300 of the world's leading CEOs and institutional investors have told me that alongside the promises countries have made, their nationally determined contributions, they need clear market signals agreed globally so that they have the confidence to invest without the goalposts suddenly moving. This is the framework I've offered in the Terracotta Roadmap created by my Sustainable Markets Initiative, with nearly 100 specific actions for acceleration. Together, we are working to drive trillions of dollars in support of transition across 10 of the most emitting and polluting industries. They include energy, agriculture, transportation, health systems, and fashion. The reality of today's global supply chains means that industry transition will affect every country and every producer in the world. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the private sector is ready to play its part and to work with governments to find a way forward. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, many of your countries I know are already feeling the devastating impact of climate change through ever-increasing droughts, mudslides, floods, hurricanes, cyclones and wildfires, as you've just seen on that terrifying film. Any leader who has had to confront such life-threatening challenges knows that the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of prevention. So I can only urge you, as the world's decision makers, to find practical ways of overcoming differences so we can all get down to work together to rescue this precious planet and save the threatened future of our young people. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Alexa, turn the light on.
Okay.
Well, hopefully that's bright enough, everybody. So we just went through Prince Charles, who is to be king. Did you know, everybody, that if you search up any story on Prince Charles becoming king, they say Charles the Third or George the Sixth? Will he change his name? Now, everybody, there is a King George the Sixth. That's Elizabeth's father. He's also the king who made a deal with the American people, all the people of America, and all the citizens of Russia, former Soviet Union. This is the original Atlantic Charter, 1941. They talk about letters of patent. You'll hear from this from Harvard, from everywhere. I went to the highest institution in the United Kingdom. On my Facebook, which I produced, is all of King George VI stamped letters, agreements, with none other than signed and sealed and certified by Sir Winston Churchill, but also received, signed, sent back by President Teddy Roosevelt, as well as Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union. Now, people can say, oh, the Soviet Union's gone, Joseph Stalin's gone, Teddy Roosevelt's gone, he's gone. It does not matter, because House and Senate in the United States of America voted unanimously and passed America First, which ended all involvement forevermore in the League of Nations and set about creating the United Nations, which they bound a UN Charter in 1945. Joseph Stalin, regardless of everything else, he did that in Russia. Vladimir Putin, who is the leader of Russia, who did take Russia through from the fall to the new republic as it is, his presidency. They took that forward. They took all international agreements forward. People who don't understand, Russia and the United States are the mightiest militaries in the world. Each of them on their own can wipe out the entire world many, many times over. They never have. Since World War II, neither of those nations have ever attempted to expand beyond their traditional borders. Not a one, not ever. In fact, the opposite has occurred with both of those countries. Both of them, even when they were the Soviet Union, even as they are now, they have never tried to take any more than what is their traditional boundaries. They have removed themselves. They've imposed constitutions all over the world, removing guys like Prince Charles, who currently runs the mightiest empire in the entire world. In 2012, just as the Aztecs and Incas called it out, just as the last remaining 1,200 peoples of those civilizations, and they were mighty, millions of people, are down to just 1,200. They're down south in the Rockies. I was fortunate that the Reagan Foundation, the President Reagan Library, in his name, built by him, left for those who can read, who can go through things. I found it. They're behind me. I went through it. I found the Ute people. I went down. I've got all the history. They were chased, like the song goes from Ozzy Osbourne. Run to the hills, run for your lives. The American Indians, the Canadian Indians, which we're going to get into more of climate crisis and why Canadians don't have a clue. Neither do our First Peoples, that is, Treaty Indians, unceded Indians, many of which understand, but nobody's behind them, including Treaty Indians, including Métis and Inuit. They're not there for those people. Unceded Indians. I can take two regions alone just in Canada. I can show you from 2013, after Prince Charles enforced the Commonwealth Charter of 2012, his mother signed off, he runs it, taking all international law of all 54 Commonwealth countries under the royal family's prerogative. What they come up with, they run through the UN, and all 54 nations must observe whatever the royal family decides. This was done because of stolen crown power of all of those nations, including India. I went through it with the greatest minds in India. India has 1.4 billion people. So when I say the greatest minds of India, legal minds, constitutional experts, that's people trained in law, top 10 in India of 1.4 billion people. These are some pretty smart individuals. You will find Governor General, Lieutenant Governor in the same traditional fashion as Canada, in the same narrative, the same noun that's defined the same way, giving all crown power basically to whomever you elect as president, prime minister, doesn't matter, throughout the Commonwealth. Those countries who carry the crown, the stolen crown that all of them stole at various times. India did it first in 1948. Canada did it in 1952. We can go through all of them. All of them have the same crown powers. The royal family in 2012 said, you know what? We're not going to let you use the crown in that fashion. You stole it. It's highly problematic. But to keep our mouths shut, to keep the money flowing, the trillions of dollars to bullshit narratives like this, They say, give us power over international law because we made a promise to the United States of America and Russia. It would be basically a declaration of World War III if we governed your country. So what we'll do is we'll backdoor it. Whatever international laws we come up with that we want to put forward, you will all let us administer it, and we will run the entire international system. They allow it to go, so they keep their crown power. Prime Minister in Canada keeps his crown power through his Governor General. Unlimited, full-on, autocratic, highly supercharged executive power. Nothing remotely close to even Russia or the United States of America. Not even close. Further, they have Lieutenant Governor who unseats every province and territory. And they have zero constitutions whatsoever in the provinces. So through Lieutenant Governor, all things are possible. All Section 92s are possible by the Crown, which is Prime Minister. Premiers will go along with it. They'll cross party lines. We just watched Jason Kenney, supposed conservative, do just that. Does it all the time. Make the Prime Minister happy. You can be as autocratic as you like. His approval rating is below 20% right now. To put it in perspective, Premier Ralph Klein allowed the Conservatives to remove him when he fell below 50% approval rating, just below 50%. He said, if half of Albertans don't approve of me anymore, it's time to hang up my hat. Sick, gross, disgusting. All First Peoples and all Canadians, I want to teach you about what I've learned about environmentalism and this crown. Did you know since 2013, and I have all the data, I can go back through Canada's history, unceded land, meaning land Canada took from the peoples, not through war or anything else, they're in a constant state of war. Wet'suwet'en, all of the coast of BC, most of the interior, very little, the Treaty 8 land, that's about it. The rest of BC, 95% of it, unceded. So how is that different than the treaty lands of Canada? Well, water is not life. They will block, flood, dam, wreck all kinds of natural ecosystems, and they have. They have. I can produce documents all the way up to 2013 showing how BC never cemented anything like the rest of all of North America, including Canada, any kind of system to reduce erosion or run off waters. In fact, they drained lakes, they rerouted rivers, streams, all of it, natural runoff systems from the mountains. The Rocky Mountains, a massive, massive wall. Anyone who doesn't know that, Alberta, BC, we all know it. We all know it very well. It runs all the way through the west, down all the way to the Utes in southern United States. When you go to the East Coast, the flooding that's going on the East Coast, did you know since 2013 there's no reports, but all reports up to 2013, just like BC, nothing has been done to produce water as life. Nothing. Nothing. It's a white mark in Canada. Atlantic Canada and BC, all a white mark. You'll see it around the Great Lakes too. Nobody has put water as life or allowed water to naturally flow across the country. None whatsoever. Canadians, First Peoples. The song Run to the Hills, Run for Your Lives, all the First Peoples in Canada were chased, eradicated off the coast into the interior. Those are the treaty lands. Those are the treaty lands. Do you all want to know another statistic? Canadians and First Peoples up to 2013. Tons of data. I can go back 7 decades. The incomes of all the cities and rural peoples of the interior continues to go down as costs go up. but the outlying ones continue to rise in price, rise in wealth, and the better jobs go there. That's reality. That's reality. These are real stats. It all stopped when we got signed on to the Commonwealth Charter. Now, going into Joe Biden, smithereens, he talks too. I could play that video for you. Perhaps in hindsight I should have. But the reality is, like I told everybody, just like Barack Obama, his second term, Joe Biden's going to be a one term. He's going to lose, absolutely, the House. He is likely to watch the Senate flip, meaning all he will have is executive power. Right now in America, if there was a vote tomorrow, Donald Trump would win an election. He would win the presidency of the United States. That's reality. We have Donald Trump, Joe Biden, who both breached the Constitution of the United States of America. Heavy duty stuff, not small. It's scary. What is going to happen to the United States of America? Is the institution done? I don't know. I have a lot of work to do with both Democrats and Republicans. A lot of work to do. I don't want to see the British Empire rise up. There were 13 colonies in the United States of America. They were besieged by the Spanish, the French, British Quebec and Canada. Colonials surrounded them. There was no way what they did was even possible. How do you convince millions of people to fight for we the people themselves? Build a serious institution. They did. For the first time in world history, the term indigenous, I don't like that term. I like the First Peoples and how they're defined legally. Through war, America, it took a long time. Same with African Americans, it took a long time. But it was absolutely done in the 70s by Richard Nixon after he went out on the international stage and bartered with China and forced them to sign the Declaration of Human Rights 1948. Russia signed on to it with another provision. US and Russia toss it up in the air. The reality is they both need to sign each other's old resolutions. There's two of them. They both have to commit, not I commit, but. If they don't, this royal empire, exactly like Nazi Germany, because it is. You saw Prince Charles wearing the poppy. A lot of you wear the poppy. Do you know in China you don't wear the poppy? A lot of the Asian world you don't. Most of the world you don't wear a poppy. But let me tell you a little history, especially for Americans. Let's go back to 1840. 1840. Canadians, you weren't even around then. You were Upper Lower Canada. British Quebec. In that year there was a war, and then a subsequent war. China fought the British Empire because the British Empire brought opiates to their people, were selling them, slaving children, sex crimes, sex trafficking of children, all of it. They ruined the Chinese with opium. They did this by their colony called India. Vast colony, a lot of people too, almost as many as China. They grew opium out of the poppy. They grew opium, created the opium crisis in China. China fought back, said there will be none of these drugs in our country. You're forbidden. They fought a war. They won the first one. They lost the second one. Why? Because colonial France joined in of the time. They beat them. They lost Hong Kong. They lost a lot. USA took Shanghai. Russia took a whole bunch of assets up north and territories of Mongolia. And the unequal treaties were created. And Chinese people were to be eradicated, no differently than all indigenous people by all colonial empires. Now, Russia, USA never went as far as UK did. They do have their courts in 2018, whether Vladimir Putin likes it or not. Mongolian court signs on against China in the name of Russia. China's no dummy. They know of jurisprudence and Russia's involvement. They know of USA's involvement, and they absolutely know of UK's massive, massive involvement. Imagine having your child raped, and because it was a white man from a foreign nation, you have to go before, in your own country, before a magistrate in that white man's court, white man's law, and you're thrown out and you're called a nobody and nothing, and your daughter, 12 years old, is a whore. It happened. It happened a lot of times. That was what the unequal treaties did to the Chinese. Who created communism? Royal family. Who created all the drugs in the world today, the opiate crisis around the world? The royal family did. If you haven't read The Opium Wars 1 and 2 and The Poppy, read it. Think about it next Remembrance Day when you wear a poppy. This is history that these crazy bastards don't want you to know. Canadians, they expect you, with 30% of the world's population of the 54 states of the UN in this Commonwealth, their empire, you're to fund a third of it. How's that done, First Peoples and Canadians? Well, it means devaluing every third-class Canadian to the point you're a third world and a slave. It means all Indigenous lands are put up as collateral so that they can own it. We talk about waters rising in the world. Did you all know that 99% of that 1% first class live on the coast? Now, a lot of people live on coasts, but all first class have a massive amount of the coastal properties in this world. All the islands. The poor people, the third class, the indigenous, are chased into the interiors. You can look at Africa and the deserts, it's all the same thing. Middle East, everywhere. You're to work as a slave to pay to protect their coastal shorelines that they threw you out of. What are you going to work for? Because I'm not going to work for that. The United States is already rebelling against Joe Biden. His speech came after this one. He's lost all Americans. He ain't going to win any. He doesn't want to follow the Constitution of the United States. He doesn't want to follow international law bound by the United States of America. You're done. Your presidency's over. You've proven you're with Prince Charles, soon to be King Charles III, or is it now King George VI? Apparently your grandfather never existed. Any truth of what he's done in his life that he did do is to be erased. They want that British Empire back. What kind of American president would support rebuilding a colonial empire? Of slavery, of savagery, no human rights, no civil rights, a crown monarch, a divine human being. It's 2021. Let's all end this. Let's get to work. Let's fix Canada and get out of this because it's wrong. Thank you. That's my video. Stay tuned. I'm going to do Ethiopia tomorrow before work in good detail. That's going out to Africa. Thank you.